If you're about to fall down the Twin Peaks rabbit hole online, you've probably seen the same comments over and over. I want to watch Twin Peaks, but where do I start? Do I start with the prequel, Fire Walk With Me? No! For the love of God, no! But honestly, it's a fair question. Between the original series, the prequel, The Return, and a handful of books that blur the line between canon and dream, Twin Peaks can feel like a puzzle, or maybe like a test from David Lynch himself. At its core, Twin Peaks starts as a murder mystery, who killed Laura Palmer? But that question quickly becomes about something much bigger, a story about grief, duality, small-town decay, and the thin line between reality and the supernatural. The show balances melodrama, absurd humor, and genuine horror extremely well. And no one has replicated this since. Watching it feels less like following a story and more like being pulled into another dimension, or maybe a dream. So why do people get confused? Here's the thing, Twin Peaks isn't just one show. You've got the original 2 seasons, a prequel film, a long-awaited revival that plays like a 17-hour art film, and multiple books that expand or contradict the story depending on how you read them. To make it even more confusing, David Lynch doesn't tell stories in a straight line. Time loops, characters blur, and sometimes you're not sure if what you're watching is real in the world of the show. So how do I watch Twin Peaks? There are a few ways to approach Twin Peaks, but honestly, this is the best way. Now I'm really just going to tell you how to watch Twin Peaks, and afterwards we'll talk about the placement of the books, if you're going to include that in your watch. Which, I think you should, why not? First thing you're going to watch is going to be Twin Peaks Season 1. You gotta start here. It's only 8 episodes, and it introduces you to the town, the characters, and the mystery of Laura Palmer's death. It's quirky, dark, and funny, and builds the emotional groundwork for everything that follows. I mean, for some it might go without saying that Season 1 of Twin Peaks is where you start, right? But without spoiling it, you need to watch this first for lots of reasons. There's a main plot element in this movie that if you watch Fire Walk With Me first, will be spoiled. You will go this entire season knowing something that none of the characters know, and not in a fun way. There will be no mystery for you, so hold out. And after Season 1, you're going to watch Twin Peaks Season 2, the conclusion of the original run of the series. Now, the first half is incredible, and then things get very weird. David Lynch temporarily stepped away, and the tone shifts. The last few episodes are pure, unfiltered Lynch, and they lead directly into the prequel film and the new series. And I say new series, but I guess it's almost 10 years old at this point. Ugh. You gotta stick with it through Season 2. There are some moments you're gonna want to quit. Here and there's some subplots, and you're like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? And why do I care? I promise. You'll care. Except for, like, maybe the James and Evelyn subplot. But after you've gone and watched Season 2, now you can go watch Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. Now when you do this, don't go in expecting all the questions to be answered from the end of Season 2. I'm warning you now. This movie is emotionally devastating and makes much more sense after you watch Seasons 1 and 2. Again, for the reasons I stated before, you definitely have to watch this after those both. It reframes everything you've seen on the show, turning the mystery of Laura Palmer into a tragedy about abuse, trauma, and evil that exists just below the surface. I mean, I'm holding the 4K in my hand here. I just did a video on it recently, and what a beautiful fucking movie that is. You know, a lot of people, I think, went into this expecting a conclusion to Twin Peaks. They knew it was a prequel, but they still expected it to conclude something at the end. If anything, it reframes Twin Peaks and makes you have more questions. And after Fire Walk With Me, lucky for you, you don't have to wait 25 years to watch Twin Peaks The Return. Also known as Season 3, this is where Lynch goes full David Lynch. It's less of a continuation and more of a meditation on identity, memory, the passage of time, the evolution of TV, dense dreamlikes, and sometimes maddening. But I promise, it's essential. This series is a big test of if you're just a Twin Peaks fan or you're a David Lynch fan, I feel like. There were moments when I initially watched this as it aired that I thought to myself, what the fuck is this? Where is goddamn Cooper? Why isn't he... What is happening? I now feel none of that when I watch it. I feel excitement. I feel dread. I feel terror. I feel existential sometimes. Sometimes nostalgic. It provokes every emotion, I feel like. So who would have thought Release Order made the most sense? If you want to go deeper into the Twin Peaks universe, there are a few books that add different layers to the story. And if you're going to read them, here's how I'd recommend doing that. First up, we have The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. Now you can still get new copies of this, or you can find them used. They're plenty printed. They're not that expensive. Now, this is written by David Lynch's daughter, Jennifer Lynch. You can see how thick it is. It is legitimately something that adds to the story, I think. Now, keep in mind, these are thoughts of a teenage girl dealing with trauma and abuse and all this other crazy shit, so this is a wild read. But when do you read this? I will tell you. Between seasons 1 and 2 is, I think, the optimal placement to read this. This book came out the same month that season 2 premiered, so I think maybe even watch the first episode of that season and then read the book. I don't know if you'll be able to do that, but in most cases, I think reading it between the seasons would be optimal, and in my opinion, necessary. Next up, we have The Secret History of Twin Peaks. And yes, I'm missing the dust jacket, but I got it for like $5 after the price went up, so I was still pretty stoked about that. I used to have a copy of this in the past, but dramatic relationship problems led to the loss of it. But it reads like an FBI file if you haven't read it before. This literally shows you a fucking FBI file on Josie Packard right here. So it's not like a standard book, it's really just like you're reading through FBI files, but there is sort of a fluid line there. It's very interesting. So where does this fit? This one you should read after you've seen seasons 1 and 2 and you've watched Fire Walk with Me. You watch this one leading into The Return. This is like pre-The Return Twin Peaks, but everything else you've watched and experienced. And it is a thick boy, for sure. But you have stuff like this in here. Like, that's just the page, you know what I mean? It is fascinating and I highly recommend it. Now, it was written by Mark Frost, and Twin Peaks is as much Mark Frost's as it is David Lynch's. Now, I don't even think David Lynch read these. You know, he was like, yeah, that's Mark's version of what happened. But Twin Peaks was not only David Lynch's baby. And I say that as a big David Lynch and Twin Peaks fan. So next up, we have Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier. Now, this is basically a sequel to The Secret History of Twin Peaks. More FBI files in this one. And this is kind of like trying to explain what happens after The Return. So obviously, you're going to want to watch it after you finish The Return. This is kind of a closing the book on Twin Peaks book. Now, they're not mandatory, but they deepen the show's mythology. They give you more context for the show's mysteries, and I appreciate that. It gives you more things to wonder about. The Secret History of Twin Peaks starts out with Lewis and Clark. It leads into Roswell, New Mexico. It's fascinating. The last piece of media I wanted to mention is called Diane, the Twin Peaks Tapes of Agent Cooper. This was a 2-sided audio cassette tape released October 1st, 1990. So if you're keeping score here at all, you'd know that that's like a month after Season 2 premiered. So if you're going to listen to that, it's about an hour-long audio cassette, which you can find online, and it's on Spotify and everything. I would recommend listening to that after you read The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, and before Season 2, or even after Season 2. But I think most of it plays to what happens in Season 1 instead of 2. I hope I have given you plenty of information on how to watch Twin Peaks. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you like this video, be sure to check out this one and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.